Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Retro Wrestling Review Series, Season 6, Episode 1. And this is actually going to be a very short season, just because usually I do, it's a pay per view review series, and this series is going to be Fastlane, and there's only two Fastlane in existence, so it's only going to be two episodes, so, you're going to have to deal with that. I wanted to start this series a lot earlier than I did, but I ended up being really busy with schoolwork and things like that, so it just couldn't happen. And quite frankly, after the Elimination Chamber review series, I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a break from this and do some other things, so I kind of, wanted to take a step back. But I'm here back to do the Retro Wrestling review series. And today, I am going to be reviewing. Actually, this video will probably get up at midnight, so it'll end up being tomorrow. But I am going to be reviewing Fastlane from 2015. This was the first ever Fastlane in existence, which is why it's the first episode. And this is kind of interesting because I personally, think that it's kind of stupid, anyways, to have a pay per view in February in between WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble. I just personally, I get you have to have a pay per view every month, but I feel like this is kind of a month where you should just be focusing on WrestleMania. So I don't really think you should be having pay per views in the middle of the month. I don't think that's gonna uh, kill the company. But anyhow, that's just a topic for another time. But this was Fastlane from 2015, and I actually just went back and watched my predictions video from just before the show had happened at the time, and it's very interesting because at the time I had a lisp, which I kind of do anyways, but it was worse back then because I had just got my retainer, and which I ended up losing anyways. And I just had trouble speaking at the time because the retainer which just made it difficult to speak. So it's very interesting how definitely time has changed. And I wonder, I think at the time I remember a lot really looking forward that much to that show. And I will talk about it as I talk about the backstory and stuff like that. So it's very interesting how much I really kind of wasn't looking forward to the show all that much. So I wonder if my viewpoint's going to change now that I'm watching it going back. And now that I know that the stuff that happened nowadays. So it's going to be interesting. And at the time, they had given this show away if you were a WWE Network new subscriber. You would get this show for free because this was at the time where the WWE Network was really failing. It wasn't being, I shouldn't say failing, but it wasn't getting the number of subscribers they wanted it to get, so they wanted to give away a month free of subscriptions, so that way people would kind of, just before WrestleMania, people would get it and see if they would want to keep it. So it was very interesting. You would get it for free. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But anyhow, let me just get right into reviewing the show. I am going to structure this video pretty much like this. I'm not going to do this all in one take. I'm going to do it in different takes. I'm going to cover the kickoff all in one take. I'm going to cover then when the actual show happens, after each match and segment, I'm going to cover all of that in different takes. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And when it comes to backstories and stuff, when I start talking about the kickoff, I will actually talk about the backstory there. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's start reviewing Fastlane from 2015. Okay, so starting with the kickoff, we had Renee Young, Booker T, Corey Graves, and Byron Saxton on the panel. And I've always liked that they had a kickoff too, by the way. I've always liked the fact that they kind of had the panel because it actually makes it feel like it's a legitimate sport. I like that it puts over angles really well. It's kind of like a last-ditch effort to buy the pay-per-view if you see the pre-show and everything. So I do like the idea of him having a kickoff / a pre-show. Kind of wish they would just keep the name to kickoff a pre-show, but whatever. And I kind of wish the kickoff would they would do more stuff with it. I feel like the kickoff, they kind of don't really do as much with it. They just kind of have, yes, the panel's nice, but then they have that match that really doesn't sell you to watch the pay-per-view. I feel like they should be showing a lot of stuff about the pay-per-view, like, you know, the set, to get people to want to buy this show. You know, I feel like NXT always has done their pre-shows better. They actually, you know, do a good job of it. Then on commentary, we had JBL, Michael Cole, and Jerry the Can Lawler. So they went over the match card, which I will do myself. We have a match between Goldust and Stardust. Well, actually, also, too, we have a kickoff segment where the Miz is going to host Miz TV with Paul Heyman. I'm going to get into that in a minute. We have a WWE Tag Team Championship match. WWE Tag Team Champions, the Usos versus Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. Which I'll get into that. Okay, I'll talk about the build-ups when I get there. What else did we have on the show? We had a 6-man tag team match between Seth Rollins, Corporate Kane, and Big Show versus Ryback, Eric Rowan, and Dolph Ziggler. Yeah, really weird team up right there. We have an Intercontinental Championship match between Intercontinental Champion Bad News Barrett and Dean Ambrose. We have a United States Championship match between United States Champion Rusev versus John Cena. And we have a Divas title match between Divas Champion Nikki Bella and Paige. And then we have like the main event of the show, which is a WWE World Heavyweight Championship #1 contenders match. Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan. So overall, it doesn't actually sound like that bad of a show in terms of card structure. The build up to the show, though, not so much. Oh, we also, too, I forgot to mention, have a face-off between Sting and Triple H. So let's talk about the build-up for that first, because that's kind of what they covered first. Actually, I want to talk about the build-up to the whole Goldust-Stardust match, because they didn't really talk about that too much. I don't want to talk about it now. So, the build-up between Goldust and Stardust is, if you didn't know, back in 2014, Cody Rhodes was going on in a massive losing streak, so he claimed that Goldust needed to find a better tag team partner than him. So Goldust went through an experiment where he went through different tag team partners, and eventually Cody Rhodes came up with a great idea, and he revitalized his character. He pretty much became Stardust, which was pretty much Goldust, except he was, obsessed with stars and everything. And this actually helped kind of keep the tag team concepts fresh between Goldust and Cody Rhodes. And I actually thought, the exchange from Cody Rhodes to Stardust was actually good. I actually enjoyed it. They eventually went on to hold the WWE Tag Team titles again, but then eventually they started going on this massive losing streak. So then in early 2015, they started having issues. They started teasing dissension. And Stardust was Cody Rhodes was starting to become too much about Stardust. So, Goldust, when they started losing matches, Goldust was asking what was going on, and he kept calling him, and he tried calling him Cody, but then he was like, my name is not Cody, it's Stardust. He actually became incensed that he actually thought he was Stardust. Really weird story. So then eventually, after Gold and Stardust had launched a match on Raw, because eventually they had their dad, the American Dream baby, Dusty Rhodes, come in and give him a little bit of a pep talk, talking about how they're brothers, they're blood, and they need to stick together. Eventually, Stardust ended up turning on Goldust, and this would lead to this match. This was also a match we had wanted for a while, because obviously, if people didn't know, Cody Rhodes and Goldust are half brothers. This was a match we had wanted to happen forever, and at the time, I actually was looking forward to this match, and I still feel this way now. They really should have done this match at WrestleMania, not at Fastlane, and they really should have done this match. There was tons of differences where they were going to do it. I would say maybe at this point it was too little too late to do this match. I'm happy they were going there finally, but it didn't really feel like that they were as committed to it as they could have been, and they just threw it away at this show, Fastlane, when they really should have waited to WrestleMania to do it. And that's what a lot of the problems I had, by the way, with this show. A lot of the matches that I wanted to see, a lot of the matches that happened on this show, I wanted to see at WrestleMania. So, That's kind of what was the problem with the show. The first big match really between the guys the wrestling should have been at WrestleMania, and this was one of these matches. Um, and this matchup could have should have happened in either WrestleMania 28, because that's when Cody Rhodes was like the Intercontinental Champion. He was on a big hot streak, and having Goldust come back and face him for the IC title would have been really cool. WrestleMania 29 when Goldust had returned and was in the Royal Rumble match, that would have been cool. WrestleMania 30, which would have really made sense because that's when they actually had become a tag team. They had just lost the tag team titles. It would have made huge sense. Here it made some sort of sense, but they didn't really execute it as properly as they could have. And like I said, they did it at Fastlane instead of at WrestleMania. I thought that was stupid. Alright, so I talked about the build-up for that. Then the build-up for this whole Sting and Triple H face-off. Let me kind of talk about that. So, the reason for this was because for years everybody had wanted Sting to come to WWE, and Sting refused to go to WWE. He had always been in other companies. He became a huge star without being involved with WWE. He was in WCW, then eventually when that went out of business, he ended up going to TNA, and then eventually he left TNA. And it was finally noted that Sting was going to WWE. What hurt his debut a little bit, I'm going to admit, was the fact that he was that we had already kind of known he was in WWE because of the internet. We had seen him do interview segments. He was like the bonus pack of WWE 2K15 at the time of the video game. So, you kind of already knew he was in WWE. So if we didn't even know that to begin with, that would have helped it. But Sting was in WWE. And we wondered if he was going to be making an appearance, and he did just that. And it was at Survivor Series 2014. We had Team Cena versus Team Authority, and the Authority ended up. If the Authority had lost, the Authority would have to would no longer be in power. So I thought that was really good. And this was when the Authority were like huge. They were pretty much unstoppable. No one was able to stop them. So then eventually it was down to the sole survivors of Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins. And eventually Triple H interfered. He laid out Ziggler with a pedigree because he knew that his job was on the line. And right when the referee's about to make the count, we see this video package play. And we see a crow on the video package. And we see that it's Sting. Sting had finally made his debut in WWE, and it was awesome. It was a knockout moment when it happened. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Sting! It's Sting! It was awesome. So then he had laid out Triple H with a Scorpion Death Drop, put Dolph Ziggler on Seth Rollins, and ended up costing Triple H the match, and the Authority were no longer in power. So obviously, this kind of would have been the perfect gateway to set up that match, but obviously then it ended up meaning nothing because eventually John Cena. They were just brought back randomly anyway, so it didn't really make a whole lot. So then, it was all for nothing. So then eventually they had to do something else to kind of ignite this feud. Obviously, they brought the Authority back because they wanted to have Triple H on TV, so he could build out that match, and they couldn't come up with anything else creative to do besides, what Triple H wanted to get his job back. He was just, they just had him get his job back anyway, so the Sting's debut really was all for naught. So eventually, during a matchup, it was a 3-on-1 handicap match between John Cena taking on Corporate Kane, Big Show, and Seth Rollins. And the winner, if Cena had won, Dolph Ziggler, Eric Rowan, and Ryback would get their jobs back. What's that story? And I'll explain later on in this video. And Sting ended up showing up again and helped Cena win the matchup and pretty much kept fucking over Triple H, fucking over the Authority. So eventually Triple H challenged Sting to come to Fastlane so they could have a face-to-face segment. So he wanted an answer on Raw, and a big video package played with Sting saying Triple H, and then we see a bunch of fake Stings out there, and then the other Sting had come out, scared Triple H, and it showed I accept. So obviously now it was at the fences. We were going to have the big face-to-face segment with Triple H and Sting, and it was going to be really interesting. And obviously Sting being in WWE was awesome at the time because, he was finally in WWE, and it was awesome, you know. And the feud between Triple H and Sting, I thought it had made a lot of sense. I didn't really care for the way it was done, where they were trying to use the whole Monday Night Wars thing with, you know, WWE Monday Night War versus Monday Night Nitro. I didn't really care for that part of it. What it should have been about was the fact that Triple H was always on top, and Sting wanted to finally take him down, and that's what it should have been about, but it wasn't. It kind of felt like it was a whole Monday Night Wars thing, and they kind of went into that direction. But then, you know, but Triple H had even talked about how Sting had taken away the one thing that was important to him. Now, it would have made more sense if he had said this when he didn't have, when he wasn't, if he didn't have his job back already. It would have made a ton of more sense, but I digress. It was still awesome. But there was some storyline dispute about it. And obviously I want to talk about this because this was pretty big in the show. It talks about the feud that was going on between Seth Rollins and Jon Stewart. Obviously Jon Stewart, you know, used to host The Daily Show on TV. So eventually Seth Rollins had called out Jon Stewart, saying that he could run The Daily Show a lot better than he could. So Jon Stewart had responded, saying that you turned your back on the Shield. And you know, that you're pretty much a cock block for the Authority, and he said that he's going to stick it to Seth Rollins, and then Rollins had responded, challenging him to come to Fastlane or Raw. I actually thought, you know, I always actually had thought this feud between Seth Rollins and Jon Stewart was pretty entertaining. It was good mainstream publicity, so I always had liked it. So then we had the 6-man tag team build-up between Ryback, Eric Rowan, and Dolph Ziggler facing Corporate Kane, Seth Rollins, and Big Show. So now I can kind of talk about that part of the build-up. So when the Authority had finally come back to power, they had fired Dolph Ziggler, Eric Rowan, and Ryback. And then obviously they had that match with Cena, with Cena ended up hoping to win, which got them their jobs back. So Ziggler, Eric Rowan, and Ryback wanted payback. So they did a bunch of run-ins where they would attack members of the Authority like Seth Rollins, like Corporate Kane, like The Big Show. And eventually Seth Rollins beat Dolph Ziggler in a one-on-one matchup, and then they ended up laying him out on the go-home show of SmackDown. So then it kind of led us to this match, and it was an okay build-up. It was nothing fancy, but okay. I never really got why they put Eric Rowan as like a singles wrestler. It was just terrible. I didn't really think he was all that good. He was bad. Ryback I thought was a good wrestler, and obviously Dolph Ziggler was a great wrestler. But this feud wasn't bad. It was okay. It was an okay build-up. I really didn't care about the match going into it all that much, but it had some story behind it. And then we had an interview segment with Ryback, Eric Rowan, and Dolph Ziggler. And Dolph Ziggler talked about how the Authority's been messing with them for months, and they say that they're gonna stick it right back to the Authority for firing them. And then Ryback says that the Authority always likes to take doesn't always give the fans what they want. So then you know, Ryback talks about how everybody wants to see Eric Rowan, Dolph Ziggler, and the big guy Ryback. And then Eric Rowan says that the Authority have erupted them, and they shamed them, and they destroyed them. And they say that they're going to do the same thing to Rollins and to the Authority tonight. And overall, I thought it was a good promo segment. I thought Dolph Ziggler was the highlight of it because he's the best on the mic, and Eric Rowan was pretty bad. But it was okay. And now let me talk about the build-up to the Intercontinental Championship match. It was obviously between Barrett and Ambrose. So I never cared about this build-up either. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But the build-up was Dean Ambrose had defeated Bad News Barrett in a non-title match because Bad News Barrett had won the Intercontinental Championship from Dolph Ziggler for a 5th time. And yeah, so then Ambrose wanted an Intercontinental Championship match. He wanted to be one of those people that held the Intercontinental Championship. And Bad News Barrett kept refusing to give him Intercontinental Championship matches until eventually on Raw, after Bad News Barrett had defeated Damian Mizdow in a match, Dean Ambrose laid him out with the dirty deeds. He tied his hands to the ring post, and he forced him to sign a contract giving him his IC title match at Fastlane, and that kind of led us to this match. So yeah, the build-up wasn't that bad. I personally didn't care about it because of what happened with Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose was like a hot guy in the company. The Shield had just broken up, and Dean Ambrose was red hot. He was the 2014 Breakout Star of the Year, and everybody loved Dean Ambrose. I loved Dean Ambrose. But then he lost his feud with Seth Rollins. He lost his feud with Bray Wyatt. So he was, and they pretty much just diminished him back to the mid code, and it was dumb. I hated it. And everybody was trying to talk about how Dean Ambrose is at the time, if he gets the Intercontinental Championship, he's going to defend it all the time. It's going to have great prestige. And then I would have to tell him, yeah, remember how his U.S. title one was good, because when he was U.S. champion, he never defended the title, so it was stupid. But overall, though, the build-up wasn't bad. It was actually a story for the IC title, and it was actually somebody that had been in the main events that everybody knew, that everybody cared about, that was in the IC title picture, and it was somewhat of a story. So I did like that part of it. And then Dean Ambrose has a great interview segment talking about how he feels that the Intercontinental Championship isn't used as popularly as it is today. He feels like it should be the workhorse is holding that title. It should be that stepping stone to becoming a world champion. And he says that if he wins the Intercontinental Championship, he would defend it with honor and integrity. And he talked about how he's going to destroy Bad News Barry. Renee Young ended up interviewing him, and he actually cut a really good interview. It was actually really good. Like, nowadays, I still think Dean Ambrose is good, but he's not as good as he was before. This was I always forget how good Dean Ambrose is, because he was really good. This was probably one of the best promos he's ever cut in his career. It's probably not saying much, because I haven't, the stuff that he's done now isn't all that great. So I actually am pretty impressed with Dean Ambrose, because nowadays he's just kind of, I think, gotten lazy. So, and then we have the build up to the tag team championship match between the Usos and Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. I'm not really a huge fan of this build up, because it really wasn't much of a story. It was just them having matches, and personally, to me, that's not a storyline unless they're trying to do like some competition thing. I didn't think I liked the storyline at the time either, because Cesaro was somebody that should have been a lot more than he was. I personally didn't like Cesaro's position in the company at the time. I hated it. I personally thought, I always said this every week too, that he was being used like a joke, and he was, because he had won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. He had built up so much momentum, and they just completely killed his momentum and had him lose a lot of matches, and they just weren't featuring him very well. And then he was in this tag team with Tyson Kidd, and I was just like, he was just in a tag team a year ago, and now he's back right where he started before. I personally hated it. He was being used like a joke. That's why I didn't like the build up to this match. But then they did this segment, and Tyson Kidd, though, I actually loved Tyson Kidd at this time. This was like the best Tyson Kidd had ever been in his career, because everybody always thought Tyson Kidd was great, and I was like, I don't think he's great. I think he's good, but I don't think he's great. I thought he was tremendous in the ring, but I just always thought he was really bland on the microphone. And this was at the time where Tyson Kidd was really on his game. He had gone back down to NXT, and that was probably the best he ever was in his career, because it actually gave him a chance to work on his promo work. He actually had more of a character behind him, and I loved Tyson Kidd at this time, actually. I thought he was really good. And then, they did this tag team with Cesaro, which I personally, obviously at the time, didn't like, but I'll talk to you about it when I talk about the aftermath. Obviously then they did this whole thing where they went, Naomi and the Uso that she's married to, I don't exactly know which one she's married to, because they both look the same, and Natalya and Tyson Kidd ended up all going out on like a double date, and Tyson Kidd, being like a dick, because he was always a dick to Natalya because he was a heel and Natalya was the babyface, had invited Cesaro to come along, and they were all upset about it, and which I loved. It was actually really good. And they ended up attacking the Uso, and Natalya's even like, I tried to make this night perfect, and you just ruined it. I thought that was awesome. And, the build-up to this match, I wasn't a huge fan of the build-up because of, like I said, and I'm still kind of not a huge fan of the build-up because, having matches isn't really a quality tag team title build-up. But they were good matches, but like I said, at the time, I just wasn't looking forward to this match at the time because of Cesaro's position in the company. I was probably butthurt, but whatever. And then we have the build up to the Divas Championship match. It's between Nikki Bella and Paige. Really don't remember a lot about this build up. It was just kind of came out of nowhere. I believe Paige had just like randomly turned face, and Nikki Bella had won the Divas title at Survivor Series, but Paige had just randomly turned face out of nowhere. It didn't make any sense at all. She had gone on Total Divas and was just randomly turned face. It was weird. And I think this is when I really wasn't a huge fan of Paige, because she was supposed to be the anti-diva, but yet she's on Total Divas, and they just really ruined her character at this time, I thought. And I just wasn't digging this feud. I don't really remember this feud, not gonna lie. I believe they just threw this match on. I don't want to say they threw it on the last minute, but it was just there. They did this segment too where they took Paige's clothes before she went out and wrestled a match. It was just dumb. I personally didn't really care for this feud. It was dumb. I don't even remember this feud. But then the Bella twins are backstage, and Nikki Bella talks about how she's always embarrassed Paige outside the ring, and she's gonna do it inside the ring. That was mainly the gist of her promo. It wasn't bad. I feel like a lot of the people crap on the Bellas, because they weren't really, they were pretty much in the positions where they were because of who they were associated with in the company. But some of that stuff probably is true. But I thought the Bellas were okay. They were really good at getting heel heat. They were good in the promo work. But I thought they were okay wrestlers. And I thought the Bellas were decent wrestlers. I think Nikki Bella actually is a good wrestler. And I think they have worked somewhat hard to get where they were, because they improved from when they first were in the company. I would say that they definitely improved, even though you can say it's because they were related to. And then we have the build up to the United States Championship match between Rusev and John Cena. And obviously I love this build up. I love the build up for this US title match. But again, one pay-per-view too early. They should have waited to have this match till WrestleMania. And it was dumb that they had it here, because then it's shooting the angle too early, I thought. But anyhow, it's Rusev and Cena, and the reason why this match was happening is because Rusev had gotten into a face-to-face conversation with Cena during a backstage interview at the Royal Rumble. So then it built up to the match, and Triple H had talked about how John Cena is old news, so he was going to send the new generation to come after him. And Rusev was that guy, and at the time, Rusev was being immensely pushed. He was undefeated. He had defeated former 6 World Heavyweight Champions. He had never lost a match. He had the gimmick where he was pro-Russia. He hated America. Rusev was probably at the best when he was here, because he was a monster. He destroyed everybody. And they talked about how John Cena's not going to be able to fight back. Rusev's too strong for him. And then they have the segment where Rusev ended up laying him out. So then Cena talked about how he is going to overcome, and he is going to beat Rusev, and he's going to be the first superstar to defeat him. And then Cena had laid him out on the Go Home show, and it was a good quality build up. Obviously I knew where the blow off match was going, but it was a good quality build up. And it was what made this even more good too was John Cena, the face of the WWE, was fighting for the United States Championship. It was huge at the time, because John Cena was always the guy in the main event segment. The fact that he was fighting for the U.S. title, that elevated the United States Championship. I thought it was awesome. So I personally loved it. And I remember this was at the time John Cena had like his black eye, and I would always make the jokes that Nikki Bella's tit milk always went to his face. It was awesome. It was funny. So then the Usos have a Q&A segment. This was back at the time when they had the social media allowance, which they still do, and they were just putting that in, and they had the Q&A segment, and sometimes they'll hit or miss, but they're really not worth any watching. I don't know why they do them. They just do. And they ask how they felt, Tom Phillips asked them how the Usos feel about their dad Rikishi being inducted to the Hall of Fame, and they said they're excited about it. And they asked what the biggest accomplishment is outside winning the WWE Tag Team titles, and they say it's when they ended up dancing in the ring with their dad Rikishi, and they talked about what the biggest obstacle was growing up together, and they said it was sharing things. So it was an okay Q&A segment, nothing special. And yeah, the Usos were out too. I didn't even mention they still kind of are, but especially at this time, they were a top tag team. They had They were two-time WWE Tag Team Champions, and they were like the main tag focus on the show. They had hold the first reign. They had hold the WWE Tag Team titles for about 7 months, I'd say. So they were dominant tag team champions. And then it had showed a video package for Sheamus, because Sheamus was returning to the WWE at this time, and obviously they were focusing on packaging him as a heel. So I obviously had liked it at the time. And now, before I talk about this next segment, I want to talk about the build up to the WWE World Heavyweight Championship #1 contenders match between Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. Now, obviously, I'm just going to talk about the build up, then I'll say what I thought about the build up of this match. So, Brock Lesnar had won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam from John Cena. And Lesnar was on the top of his game at this time. This was probably the best Lesnar had looked. He had destroyed John Cena at SummerSlam. He had just come off a successful WWE World Heavyweight Championship defense at the Royal Rumble. And on the same night, Roman Reigns had won the Royal Rumble, and he was going to go on to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. But then the WWE decided that they wanted to see if Roman Reigns was ready. They didn't want to have Roman Reigns in this spot. I don't remember exactly the storyline reason they had said. I think because they wanted to see if Roman Reigns had what it took, because the fans weren't bought into him, which I'll talk about that in a second. So they had a match. It was Daniel Bryan versus Seth Rollins. And the winner was going to face Roman Reigns at Fastlane. Roman Reigns pretty much was going to give up his Royal Rumble spot, and he had to defend it at Fastlane. And Daniel Bryan would go on to defeat Seth Rollins. And Daniel Bryan had just returned to the WWE from his first neck surgery. And he ended up getting eliminated from the Royal Rumble. He was disappointed that he didn't win. So then Roman Reigns was pissed off because he felt like his title shot was taken from him. And he said he was going to be damned if Daniel Bryan was going to take it from him. And, Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar had cut a promo together saying that Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns are should be afraid, because yes, they're going to be beating the hell out of each other, but they're just going to do it just to become a victim of Brock Lesnar. And then eventually Daniel Bryan had talked about how Roman Reigns may be bigger and stronger than him, but he's a better wrestler. And they did a thing where they were costing each other matches. They ended up having to team up together to go into a tag team gauntlet match. And then eventually they had finally a big brawl to end off on the go home show of Raw, where they ended up just beating the crap out of each other. And this was good. I really enjoyed the Roman Reigns Daniel Bryan feud. I loved it. It was just kind of a shame. I actually enjoyed the feud, but there were some things I didn't like about this match. I actually kind of did not want to see this match at the time, and here's why. So obviously the real reason they did this match was because the fans when Roman Reigns had won the Royal Rumble, the fans booed it out of the building. Because they had booked it poorly. They brought Daniel Bryan back, and they really wanted Daniel Bryan to win the Royal Rumble. And Roman Reigns was just in the wrong spot, because I actually personally do agree with them at this part that anybody could have won the Royal Rumble. Roman Reigns was just that guy. And I personally think Roman Reigns deserved to win the Royal Rumble. He was the guy they were really pushing at the time. Now, obviously, they didn't do a good job building up Roman Reigns to win the Royal Rumble, so that sucked. And then eventually, I think because WWE fans had gotten pissed that Daniel Bryan didn't win the Royal Rumble, well, most of them, there were other reasons people were pissed. I was pissed off because of the way it was booked. They had canceled the WWE Network subscriptions, and they decided they were going to boycott the show. But then eventually, and let me say it too, they canceled their network subscriptions so much that the page crashed. That's pretty bad. So then WWE decided to throw this match with Reigns and Bryan together, which was weird. I guess this was supposed to help Reigns, but I personally didn't see it that way, and I still don't see it that way. Because here's why. Roman Reigns, they were trying to gear up as this big baby face going up against Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble, at WrestleMania, and they were trying to push him with this big baby face going against him, and they're having him face probably the biggest baby face at the time in WWE, maybe in wrestling, Daniel Bryan, a guy that the fans really like I said, the guy that the fans really like, and you're possibly going to have him take away Daniel Bryan's opportunity to wrestle for the title at WrestleMania. You can see where I'm going with this. It also didn't make any sense because Roman Reigns, he won the Royal Rumble. The WWE decided to go with Roman Reigns at the end of the day. They should have stuck to that. It didn't really, it didn't make any sense because when you win the Royal Rumble, you get a fucking title match. And the WWE, if they weren't gonna just fully go with Roman Reigns, just go with fucking Daniel Bryan. Fuck it. And obviously, we find out what would have happened with Daniel Bryan, because it was a good thing that they didn't go with Daniel Bryan. But it was, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. It also didn't make a whole lot of sense because Daniel Bryan had a fucking rematch clause in his contract. He even said he had a rematch. He could have just gone after the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. You could have done Lesnar versus Bryan here, and you didn't even need to waste Daniel Bryan's time fighting in this spot. So it was just dumb. And mind you, at that too, I pointed this out when I watched my predictions video. When Daniel Bryan was eliminated from the Royal Rumble, and I hate saying this, it was way before he was eliminated early on. If anybody should have had this spot at the time, it should have been fucking Rusev. He was the last guy that Reigns eliminated in this match. It didn't make any fucking sense. It was stupid at the time. I hated this match. I didn't hate the match, but I hated the build up to this match. It made no fucking sense, and it was just like. And I want to make you guys sure too. Like, I personally wasn't like a huge fan of Roman Reigns, but I liked Roman Reigns. I'll admit that I did like him. And I thought I saw potential, but it's like the way they were building up Roman Reigns was not good. They were having him cut promos where he was talking about Jack and the Beanstalk and saying stuff like "suffer and succotash," and it was just terrible. The way they were setting up Roman Reigns was not good, and this was one of those examples. I mean, Brock Lesnar was supposed to be this big heel, and Roman Reigns was going to be the big dominant babyface, but yet Roman Reigns is facing the hottest guy in the country. It just didn't make any sense. I still kind of hate that part of it. About that, that's like one of the parts of the show build-ups I hated, is they should have done this. They shouldn't have brought Daniel Bryan back. One, I'll say it, maybe if Daniel Bryan didn't come back as soon as he did in 2015, he'd still be wrestling today. Because he obviously clearly wasn't ready to come back, because you could just tell. And you should have waited till after WrestleMania, because who knows what would have happened. I bet the Roman Reigns probably would have won it in a natural way. The fact that they even hinted the fact that Roman Reigns was that Daniel Bryan was in the match, that he was gonna win the title, was a really bad idea. It was just bad. But anyhow, that's that. So then we have the Miz TV segment with Paul Heyman. This is why I waited to talk about this. And at the time, the Miz had his stunt double, Damien Mizdow. The Miz had made him a stunt double in like September of 2014 because Damien Sandow, they were using like crap. And he actually took this gimmick, and Damien Sandow, I love that he did this. He took this gimmick that should have sucked, and he made it into something. And I'm always going to respect Damien Sandow for that. I've always liked Damien Sandow, too. I thought he was really talented. And everybody loved Damien Mizdow, and eventually, he was really over, and the Miz, because of how over he was, felt like he was overshadowed by Damien Mizdow, which he was, made Damien Mizdow his assistant. He was no longer his stud double, so he would pretty much treat Damien Mizdow like absolute shit. So then we had this Miz TV segment pretty much, but I was just kind of explaining that because before the match, everybody was chanting Mizdow, so the Miz forces him to sit in the corner like a dog and just watch this, which I thought was great heel heat by the Miz. Everybody always hates the Miz. I've actually never hated Miz. I never liked the Miz as a wrestler or anything, but I always thought he was really good as a character and stuff like that. And then he brings out Paul Heyman, and he asks Paul Heyman if Brock Lesnar is here tonight, and then Paul Heyman says, Miz, I know you're a good actor, but you're not that good at an actor. We know that you're afraid of the WWE Undisputed Champion Brock Lesnar, but he says that Brock Lesnar is not here tonight, but he actually teases that he is. And the Miz says that he's a great actor, and he wants to know which one Lesnar would rather face. Would he rather face Daniel Bryan or Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? He talks about everything that Daniel Bryan did at WrestleMania 30, which we'll talk about in the next season. And Paul Heyman says what Daniel Bryan accomplishes great. And he said that he's a huge supporter of Daniel Bryan, and everybody would love to see him go on to WrestleMania and lead him into a yes movement, but it's just not going to happen. Brock Lesnar would just put him right back on the injury list, which was probably what would have happened. And then eventually he goes to talk about Roman Reigns, but then he sees that Damian Mizdow is sitting in the corner. He's like, I don't like the way he's staring at me. So then the Miz forces Damian Mizdow to turn around, which I thought was funny. So then Paul Heyman talks about Roman Reigns and how he's known his family for years, since he was 13 or 14 years old. And he says that Roman Reigns is a good kid. He's got all the potential in the world, but he's just not going. And he's gonna. And if he defeats Daniel Bryan, he's just gonna end up losing to Brock Lesnar. And that was about it. That was pretty much the whole gist of this promo. And I thought it was really good, mainly because I liked what they were doing with the Miz and Damian Mizdow, even though it kind of makes me sad because of what happened to Damian Sandow. And I love and obviously Paul Heyman was great on the mic here. And obviously I would just talk about the aftermath. Paul Heyman I'll get to, and Brock Lesnar I'll get to at the end of the show. But obviously the Miz and Damian Mizdow would go on to compete in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Damian Mizdow would finally turn on the Miz and eliminate him from the Battle Royal. And then they would have a little bit of a feud where the Miz ended up going over, which shouldn't have happened. And Damian Sandow would slowly fall off the face of insecurity, and he pretty much faded away to nothing. Now he's in TNA, and now his gimmick is he's a Liberace gimmick. So it's pretty bad for Damian Sandow. So yeah, and the Miz now is he went on to become he pretty much went on to defeat Damian Mizdow, and he's gone on to become to win the Intercontinental Championship a couple of times. And the Miz has actually benefited pretty well coming out of this show. And overall, but that was the kickoff. Overall, I thought the kickoff actually was decent. Not great, but decent. I liked the best thing was obviously the Miz TV with Paul Heyman, but everything else I thought was okay. I didn't mind watching it, but the kickoff was decent. I didn't mind it. Alright, so we had the actual show itself, and we had JBL, Michael Cole, and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. They were actually on commentary for the pre-show too. I just had forgotten to mention it. And the first match was the 6-man tag team match. Dolph Ziggler, Ryback, and Eric Rowan versus Corporate Kane, Big Show, and Seth Rollins with J&J Security ringside, which if you don't remember who J&J Security was or you don't know, it was Jamie Noble and Joey Mercury. They actually were like the, what do they call them? Like the stewards, the henchmen of Seth Rollins, which was pretty cool. They're kind of like the yes men, I guess you could say. And a couple of things I did want to mention too is I never really cared for Corporate Kane. No, I didn't really care. I liked it in the beginning, but but Corporate Kane, I just thought ruined Kane, and I didn't care for that. I talked about it in a ton of videos when he actually was Corporate Kane. What else? And Big Show had turned heel and joined up with the Authority, which had made no sense, because when the Authority had started, they made Big Show's life a living hell, and pretty much had threatened to fire him, and bought his house, and and he wanted to kill Triple H, but all of a sudden now he's all fine with them. I hated that. And what else did I want to say? And obviously that's about it, I guess. But this match was just an average match. This is probably a match you'd see on like Raw or something, because this was not a pay-per-view quality match at all. Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins start the match, and Ziggler lays out Rollins with a drop kick, and then he tags in Eric Rowan, and he starts beating the crap out of Rollins, and then a Big Show gets tagged in, and Rowan tries to take it to the Big Show. Eventually Big Show just tosses him out of the ring, and Rowan throws Big Show back first into the steel post. He scares away J&J Security, and he goes to hit a heel kick to Big Show, but Big Show ducks, and he ends up hitting the steel post with his foot. His leg ends up hitting the steel post, so the heels work over the leg of Eric Rowan. Seth Rollins ended up hitting a blockbuster on Rowan, which I thought was pretty cool. And then eventually Rowan fights back, and he ends up Ryback ends up getting the hot tag on Rollins, and he starts going off on him, and he goes for the Mihawk clothesline, but he ends up hitting Kane with it. and then Rollins rolls up Ryback. Ryback kicks up. Actually, no, Ryback goes for the shell shock. Changes here to get up on the apron. Ryback goes to take them out. Rollins hits a roll up, and Ryback kicks out. Then Rollins kicks him in the head, and covers him, but Ryback still kicks out. And then Rollins goes for the blockbuster on Ryback, but Ryback counters into the shell shock. But Big Show hits a splash, so Ryback can't capitalize and make the cover. So then Ziggler and Kane both get tagged in. They're the legal men. Ziggler goes off on Kane, and Rollins goes to get in the win. Ziggler lays him out with a famouser, and then Ziggler punches Kane 3 times in the corner. And the referee gets distracted by Rollins behind the and Kane goes to chokeslam him behind the referee's back. Big Show hits a knockout punch on Ziggler, which allows Kane to chokeslam him and covers him and gets the win. So it was an average match. I actually personally don't agree with the decision of having Kane pin Ziggler. I just didn't really care for that. It's Kane really didn't need to pin Ziggler there. I thought, if anyone should have gotten the pinfall, it should have been Seth Rollins. And then afterwards, Rollins, Show, J&J Security, and Kane are all celebrating. And afterwards, Rollins lays out Ziggler with the now banned curb stomp, which if you don't know what that move is, it's when Rollins would stomp your head into the mat. Which I always love that finisher. I can understand why they banned it because of the concussions and stuff. But then afterwards, Ryback and Eric Rowan get in the win, and they try to fight off everybody, but the numbers game's just too much. Big Show and Kane double choke slam Ryback, and then Rollins hits the curb stomp on Rowan, and then he goes to hit it on Ryback, and then Randy Orton makes his return. He makes his return because he had recently been taken out by the Authority, so he wanted to get back at Seth Rollins. And he starts going off on everybody except for Rollins and Big Show because they escaped. He lays out J&J Security with the RKO, and he tries to hit a draping DDT on Seth Rollins, but Big Show pulls him out of the ring. And then Randy Orton lays out Corporate Kane with the RKO. He tosses, at the time Rollins was the Money in the Bank contract holder, so he tosses the Money in the Bank briefcase out of the ring. And then Rollins takes off running. You actually see him taking off running to the back, and Randy Orton stands tall. And I actually thought, Randy Orton's return was awesome. Everybody had chanted for him to return. And actually, there was somebody that had a sign that said Big Show face turn. And at the time when, obviously everybody knows that Big Show has a history of turning face and heel really quickly. He's done it the most out of anybody probably in the wrestling business. So I thought that was funny. But then the aftermath of this match is Big Show would go on to win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And obviously Corporate Kane, Eric Rowan, and Ryback would compete in that match. And Seth Rollins, I'll say what happened to him at the end of this video. But he would go on, actually, I guess you could say, to face Randy Orton, and Randy Orton would go on to beat him at WrestleMania. Then they have a rematch at Extreme Rules. And there's obviously more of an aftermatch with Seth Rollins, but I'll talk about that afterwards. And Dolph Ziggler I'll get to later on in this video. And I guess that's it. So you could say... and Ryback is no longer in the company. Ryback is out of the company now. He left the company in 2016 of last year. And Eric Rowan ended up is just pretty much irrelevant. Big Show is the Big Show. Kane is Kane. And Rollins, like I said, gonna get into him at the end of the video. And J&J Security are back to non-wrestling roles. They do backstage stuff now. But this match was average. Wasn't a pay-per-view quality match, but it was an average match. I don't know if it was the right match to really kick off the show, but it was average. Okay, so next Goldust is backstage, and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes comes up, and it always gets me a little sad to see Dusty Rhodes on TV now because I know he's no longer with us. I feel that when I see a lot of the wrestlers that have passed away. It's just how I feel. And actually kind of a little emotional right there. One thing I wanted to mention about this Goldust and Stardust build-up is when Dusty Rhodes had confronted him backstage and called him Cody, Stardust said, Cody Rhodes is dead, and as far as I'm concerned, so is my father. And I actually thought, that was a good line. But Dusty Rhodes comes up, and he says that no matter what happens tonight, both you and Cody mean the world to me. And he says that he doesn't want them to hurt each other too much. and he says that he does, that it's hard to think that his own family's fighting. And he says that he doesn't want Goldust to hurt him, and Goldust says that he used to remember going with Cody to the wrestling matches and seeing Dusty Rhodes do what he does best, and that's when he knew he wanted to do what he wanted because Dusty provided for his family. But he says tonight he's not fighting Cody, he's fighting Stardust, and he says that he's not going to stop beating him up until the thought of Stardust putting face paint on it makes him sick. And then Dusty Rhodes says that he understands what he's going through, but he just says that he doesn't want him to hurt each other, and at the end he wants them all to be a family again. And he says that no matter what happens, both him and Cody will mean the world to him. And then Goldust says, then Goldust takes his stuff and leaves, and they hug and say, "I love you." I really wish they really had waited till WrestleMania to do this match, but it just was not to be. So whatever. But this was very good. I really enjoyed it. I thought Dusty Rhodes and Goldust did great in this segment, and it was awesome. Okay, so next we had Goldust versus Stardust. Interesting match. So this is a match we had wanted for years. We finally got it, and it wasn't good. And I've heard why it's not good now. I heard that they really didn't want to hurt each other, so that's why. And you can kind of see that too in this match. That they didn't want to hurt each other in this match. They didn't really want to fight, but they did the match anyways. So you could kind of see that, because they were very hesitant in their moves and everything. So that kind of, I think, was what hurt the match. Maybe the fact that they didn't wait till WrestleMania to do this match, and the storyline could have really developed, because this was a storyline that kind of had just started. You had just broken them up. I think they shot the angle too soon. So I think that could have been it too. So the match starts off with them doing a bunch of chain wrestlings. Goldust and Stardust exchange arm drags on each other. They both try to go for tombstone pile drivers, and Goldust goes for the Director's Cut, but Stardust rolls out of the ring. And by the way, when Stardust came out, he was dressed kind of like Cody Rhodes, because he wasn't wearing his normal Stardust attire. He wasn't wearing his shirt, so it's like, I think we were supposed to believe that this was somewhat Cody Rhodes as well. But anyhow, so then Goldust hits an atomic drop and clothesline Stardust out of the ring. Eventually, Goldust goes for like a high cross body. Stardust moves out of the way, and then he starts working over the ribs of Goldust. He just beats the crap out of him. He pretty much dominates the rest of the match, but like I said, he was still very hesitant about it. And then he goes for the crossroads, but Goldust counters into a roll up and wins. But the count was controversial, because when the referee makes the count, he actually doesn't make the third count. But then he still says to win the belt anyway, because I think he realized that Stardust's shoulder actually wasn't up. But he still messed up because he didn't make the third count. So the finish even ruins the match. It was a controversial win, and it was just dumb. I'm not going to say the aftermath yet, because there is one more thing that happens with these two later on in the night that I do want to cover. But yeah, this match wasn't good. It was pretty bad, mainly because of the reasons I just stated. So yeah. Alright, so next, Goldust and Dusty Rhodes is backstage, and Goldust is telling Dusty that you said not to hurt Cody, but it still doesn't feel like anything is resolved. And then Stardust comes up and said, "Oh, what is this, a family reunion? And I wasn't even invited." And then Goldust like, "It's not like that, Stardust." And then he attacks, and then Stardust like, "Do you think we're done? We're far from done." And then he attacks Goldust. He throws him into one of those equipment boxes 2 times, and he just beats the crap out of him. And Dusty tells him to stop, and says that you're family. And Stardust says, "Oh, what, you want me to stop? Oh, what do you mean, Cody?" And he's like, "You mean the guy that was the star of the Legacy, the dashing one, the long reigning Intercontinental Champion? Well, Cody Rhodes is gone, and you killed him. And then you decided to send me this baggage, this Attitude Era wash-up. The Attitude Era never was, to me." And he's like, "That's an insult." And then he tells Dusty that he's not living under his shadow. Dusty's living under Stardust's shadow. Then afterwards, before he leaves, he kicks Goldust in the head and walks off. And Dusty asks for some help, some medical attention. But overall, I actually thought this was very solid. Um, and this was obviously another way to carry out this feud. But then there was the problem. Obviously, they completely forgot about this feud because after this, the feud fizzled out, which was stupid. The feud fizzled out afterwards, and they both ended up not even wrestling each other at WrestleMania. It was stupid. Goldust would go on to compete in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania, and he wouldn't win. Then eventually he got injured, so it sucks to be Goldust. And Stardust, I'll say where he went later on in this video. But yeah, it was dumb, and that this feud didn't continue because this segment's good, but then it didn't really go anywhere, so it kind of makes it a waste of time. Okay, so next was a WWE Tag Team Championship match. WWE Tag Team Champions, the Usos with Naomi ringside versus Tyson Kidd and Cesaro with Natalia ringside. And this was a really good WWE Tag Team title match. I actually, watching it back now, I actually like the match more than when I watched it then. And let me explain why. I think back that... actually, I'll explain why. Let me cover the match and then I'll explain why. So, one of the Usos and Cesaro start off the matchup, and they have some chain wrestling together. And then one of the Usos ends up hitting a body slam on Tyson Kidd. And then eventually Cesaro chop blocks Jimmy Uso's leg, and they really Tyson Kidd and Cesaro really work over the leg of Jimmy Uso. Tyson Kidd ends up painting it up onto the metal rope, which I thought looked cool, and Cesaro hits a one-legged swing into the half Boston Crab, and then he tags in Tyson Kidd, and he ends up, and while Cesaro has him in the half Boston Crab, Tyson Kidd ends up hitting a leg drop to the back of the head, which I thought looked really cool. And Kidd goes to cover him, but Jimmy Uso kicks out, and then eventually Jimmy Uso hits an enziguri on Tyson Kidd, and he ends up, and then Jey Uso ends up getting the hot tag on Cesaro, and he starts hitting all his moves on him, and eventually he tries to go up for the splash, but Tyson Kidd tries to interfere, and Jimmy Uso kicks him off, and Cesaro stops him, and he ends up hitting a superplex while Jimmy Uso's up on the apron, and Tyson Kidd hits an elbow drop. Jimmy Uso ends up kicking out of it, and then Tyson Kidd tries to gets thrown onto the apron, and he tries to go for like a split-legged roll-up, but Jimmy Uso tags in Jay when he doesn't see it, and he ends up hitting a double team Samoan drop, and covers him, but Tyson Kidd still kicks out, and then Tyson Kidd hits an enziguri on Jey Uso, and he hits a no, actually he didn't break it up, but Cesaro ended up breaking it up, and then Jimmy Uso ends up fighting with Cesaro, and Jimmy Uso ends up hitting a dive on Cesaro. Tyson Kidd kicks him in the head, and then Jey Uso gets knocked onto the outside. Tyson Kidd goes for the kick to the head, but then Jey Uso hits a Samoan drop into the barricade because it looked like all his momentum went the way he landed, just ended up taking him right into the barricade. And then Jey Uso goes for the splash, but Tyson Kidd gets the knees up, goes to cover him, but Jey Uso kicks out. Then he puts Jey Uso into the sharpshooter, and he has him in this move for a while. We think he's going to tap out, but then Jimmy Uso comes into the win, super kicks Tyson Kidd in the back of the head, and then Cesaro and Jimmy Uso start fighting, where they knock each other out of the ring, and then eventually Jimmy Uso, and it's just down to Tyson Kidd and Jimmy Uso, and Cesaro puts him in the ring. Jimmy Uso goes for the and then Cesaro goes to attack Jimmy Uso. Jimmy Uso super kicks him, and then Tyson Kidd takes him out, takes out his knee and hits the neck breaker for the win, like a one-legged neck breaker for the win. And Tyson Kidd and Cesaro became the brand new WWE Tag Team Champions, which was awesome because it was like an unexpected, because everybody going into this match thought that the Usos were going to retain the WWE Tag Team Championships, but Tyson Kidd and Cesaro actually ended up winning the titles. It was a mark-out moment because it was unpredictable. You didn't see it coming, and I thought it was really cool. And I'm not going to complain about it. So here's why I didn't like the match at the time. Was because I thought Cesaro and Kidd were going to lose, and Cesaro was just going to continue to get even more diminished. And even Tyson Kidd. I was kind of pissed about the way Tyson Kidd was being used. And, but when they won, I'm like, oh, maybe this match wasn't as bad then. So then, we watching it now, it's actually a really good tag title match, and I think it's really good. Not great, but I think it's really good. And obviously, the aftermath of this match came where the Usos and Tyson Kidd and Cesaro would end up continuing to feud over the WWE Tag Team titles, and they would both be included into a Fatal 4-Way match for the Tag Team titles, where Tyson Kidd and Cesaro ended up retaining the WWE Tag Team Championships. And then obviously the Usos ended up getting injured, so they were gone for a while. And Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, they actually, I actually found an article and it says in real life that when they threw them together as a team, they ended up becoming best friends in real life, and they ended up just, really connecting. And but eventually, they ended up losing the titles at Extreme Rules, and after eventually Tyson Kidd, after they lost the titles, ended up getting injured, so Cesaro went back to becoming a singles wrestler. But yeah, Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, you could definitely feel like they were building up chemistry because they just kept getting better and better every time they teamed up together, and it was great. So yeah, overall a really good tag match, and I really liked Tyson Kidd and Cesaro winning the titles. It was really good. Okay, so next was the face-to-face segment with Triple H and Stin. And one thing I forgot to mention about this build-up is on Raw, the go-home show of Raw, Ric Flair had come out and confronted Triple H, and he, tried to prevent Stin from playing mind games with him. But Triple H had shoved him, and he said that pretty much that no one's outside of his wife and his kids, the WWE is the most important thing to him, and nobody's taking that away from him, which was great at the time. I still love it. And so Triple H says that on Raw when that happened, he said he went too too far. Tendrils Rose, so he apologizes to Ric Flair, but he says that something that he said that he still means now is that the WWE, it means more to him than his kids. And when Triple H had come out, he wasn't dressed like the COO Triple H. He was just like the game Triple H. And he even mentions that. He says that he's not here as the COO. He's here as the heartbeat of the WWE, which I love that he said that. So he calls out Stin. Stin comes out, and Triple H says that he understands why he did what he did. He said because when you were in WCW, you fought with your head held high, and you went down with the ship. And at Survivor Series, you wanted me and Stephanie McMahon out of the WWE because without my family, the WWE dies. And he says that you're upset because my legacy destroyed your legacy. But he says, but we can make this all go away. The first option is pretty much you can do the same thing as you did, and you'll become a bigger superstar than ever. We'll mention you on the network. You'll have DVD. You'll have your own DVD. Everything. But if he chooses the second option, Triple H is going to beat. The second option is that Triple H is going to beat the hell out of him, and make sure that he gets carried out of here, and no one and Sting gets erased from the WWE. And Triple H says you have now to make your choice, and I'm not going to wait long. Sting doesn't say anything, but Triple H says, I can tell by the look of your eyes that you've made your decision. And you're going to choose the hard way, pretty much. And then he goes to say something, and Triple H goes to take a cheap shot. Sting starts firing away with right hands, and then Triple H hits him in the head with a microphone, and he beats the crap out of him. And then he goes to get the sledgehammer. He goes to hit Sting with it, and then Sting aims the bat at Triple H's throat. And when this happened, I saw a sign in the crowd that says "Bat versus Sledgehammer," which was a great sign. And he backs Triple H up into the corner, and Triple H releases the sledgehammer, and Triple H is afraid that Sting's gonna hurt him. And then Sting points at the WrestleMania sign, pretty much saying that he wants to have a match, that he's challenging Triple H to a match at WrestleMania, and Triple H pretty much accepts, saying that he'll kick his ass. And then Sting goes to walk away. Triple H goes to attack him. Sting hits him in the ribs with a baseball bat, and then he lays him out with a Scorpion Death Drop and leaves. I thought this was a good segment. Probably a segment, though, you would see on Raw, not on a pay-per-view. The only thing that makes it pay-per-view quality is that Sting was there, and it was the first time Triple H and Sting were in the ring together, so... But it was definitely a segment that wasn't needed on a pay-per-view. You could have just done that on Raw. And obviously the aftermath was the fact that... and obviously, before I talk about the aftermath, like I said, too, the storyline would have been so much better if Triple H hadn't been brought back as the COO, if he was just out there as the wrestler. And a guy that was pissed off that Sting cost him his thing, because he even says, you tried to take us out of the WWE, but you failed. So it was less... It was kind of like, what was the point of Triple H being mad at Sting? I get because he kept fucking with him, but still, it would have been better if Triple H hadn't gotten his job back, and became the COO when he was out there pissed off that he cost him, and saying that this meant everything. It would have been so much better. But anyhow, then obviously the aftermath came. Triple H and Sting ended up fighting at WrestleMania, and Triple H won. And I'm not going to rant about it right now, because I want to wait for that until I do the next season, because the next season is the WrestleMania review series, which I normally don't announce it, but I'm going to announce it now. And I'm going to wait till then to rant about Sting losing at WrestleMania, his first match ever in WWE. Alright, so next we had a Divas Championship match. Divas champion Nikki Bella with Brie Bella ringside versus Paige. This was okay. Nothing fancy, but okay. Probably like a match you'd see on Raw, though. Paige dominates the first half. She beats the crap out of Nikki Bella, but Nikki Bella pretty much gets the upper hand, throws her into the barricade, and she pretty much dominates Paige throughout the beginning of the matchup. She hits an Alabama slam on Paige. Paige kicks out, and then Paige hits a roll-up into the turnbuckle, which looked kind of weak. And then eventually Paige starts making her comeback. She goes for a drop kick. Nikki Bella counters. And then eventually Paige tries to go for the Rampage, but Nikki Bella's able to fight out of it. And then eventually they do a spot on the turnbuckle when Nikki Bella hits a power bomb off the turnbuckle. Paige kicks out. Then Paige tries to go for the PTO, but Nikki Bella is able to get to the ropes. Then eventually she throws Paige headfirst into the second turnbuckle, rolls her up, holds the tights for the win, and Nikki Bella retains the title. It was okay. And this obviously led to a tag match at Mania, and Nikki Bella then would go on to become the longest reigning Divas champion ever in the company's history. And good for Nikki Bella, and obviously Paige is not mentally stable now. Actually, I'm not going to say that, but Paige is just not making good decisions. She's making a lot of questionable decisions. She's out injured right now, but she's obviously trying to get fired right now because she's failing a lot of wellness tests, and she's failed one, she's failed two of them, and they were really close together. And you can obviously tell she doesn't want to be in WWE anymore. So I should be a little bit more clear about that. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with Paige. Alright, so next match was a Intercontinental Championship match. Intercontinental Champion Bad News Barrett versus Dean Ambrose. And I thought this was an alright Intercontinental Championship match. Ambrose dominates the first half of it, and then Barrett, he goes to go off the top rope. Barrett hits a big boot to the head, and then he dominates Ambrose for a while. He bounces his head off the steel steps, and then he throws him back in the ring, beats the crap out of him in the ring, throws him back out, throws him back first into the apron. And then he goes to throw him in the ring, but Ambrose hits a rebound clothesline on him, and on the outside. And then Ambrose starts hitting his comeback, hits all his moves on Barrett, goes for the elbow drop, but then Barrett sees it coming, so he goes to attack him, but Ambrose jumps over him, hits a flip, hits a small package. Barrett kicks out, and then Ambrose hits a knee to the gut and drop kick while he's in the ropes. And then he hits the elbow off the top rope while he's standing up. Barrett kicks out. And then he goes for a rebound clothesline. Barrett kicks him in the ribs and hits the waistland on him. But Ambrose is still able to cut out of it. And then Barrett goes for the wasteland, but Ambrose counters, hits a rebound clothesline on him, and then he goes for the dirty deeds. But Barrett just tries to escape. He goes to leave with his championship, but Ambrose hits a suicide dive on him, but then he rolls outside the ring again. And then Ambrose chases after him, throws him back in the ring, and he just beats the crap out of Barrett in the ropes. And the referee's trying to hold him back, but Ambrose just is not having it. He's upset. He's pissed off that Barrett's trying to leave. And so then eventually the referee disqualifies Dean Ambrose. So Barrett wins and retains the title. And afterwards, Barrett just continues to beat the crap out of... Ambrose continues to beat the crap out of Barrett. And then he lays him out with the dirty deeds. And he's like, you walking away, where you going? It's not a real champion. So then he walks out and he steals the Intercontinental Championship. And yeah, overall I thought it was all right. And I was fine. I'm fine with it. I guess being a disqualification because it continues the story. But then this would lead not to Ambrose versus Barrett again at WrestleMania. No. This would lead to a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship with a bunch of guys, the people that were on this show that were involved in it so far were Dolph Ziggler, Stardust, Dean Ambrose, and obviously Bad News Barrett since he was the champion. And then there's one other superstar that I'll get to later on the night. But yeah, that was it. I thought this was all alright. It wasn't bad. Probably another match you'd see like maybe a Raw or SmackDown. Alright, so next, The Undertaker's Gauntlet goes off. His druids come out, and we think that The Undertaker's going to return. And when I saw the show at the time, so did I. I should have been smarter, but I don't know, because I think I'm just such an Undertaker fanboy that I actually wanted him to return. But it's not The Undertaker, it was Bray Wyatt. And Bray Wyatt for weeks had been calling somebody out. He had acted like he was targeting someone and we didn't know who it was, and we found out here that it was The Undertaker. He pops up out of a casket, and he says that he feels the trepidation right now, and he says that he remembers when he first saw him, and he keeps referring to Undertaker as him. I don't know why. And he said that he feared him. He said that he was obsessed with being the best. But now he's no longer a dead man anymore. Well, pretty much that's what he says. He's now just a mere mortal. Because he had lost to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, lost his undefeated streak. And he says that, that now he knows that he's listening, and he says that now you can't extract fear on me anymore. Because he's pain and he's everything, and he says that he challenges The Undertaker to a match at WrestleMania. And then that was about it. I thought that the promo was very good, and obviously this mainly set up Bray Wyatt versus The Undertaker, which really wasn't a bad build-up, but it really hurt that Taker didn't really show up at all during that build-up. He only showed up to wrestle at WrestleMania. And Bray Wyatt would go on to lose to The Undertaker at WrestleMania. So this match really didn't benefit Bray Wyatt at all. Alright, so next it cuts to the panel. And they pretty much talk about how Bray Wyatt called out The Undertaker. And how it's like opening Pandora's box. And how they think Undertaker's a broken man after losing to Brock Lesnar last year at WrestleMania. And they say that you need to think twice about that. And then they kind of touch on the card a little bit, but they mainly just talked about Bray Wyatt calling out The Undertaker, and then they hype us to watch the United States Championship match, which I'm about to do. Okay, so next was the United States Championship match. United States Champion Rusev with Lana ringside versus John Cena, and I thought this was a really good match. The match starts off, Rusev keeps kicking Cena right in the back of the leg. So eventually Cena just gets pissed off and decks him right in the face, which I thought was awesome. And they both start chain wrestling each other. Eventually Rusev hits a spin kick on Cena, but Cena ended up kicking out of it. And then Rusev dominates the matchup for a little bit. He knocks Cena off the apron to the outside. He puts him back in the ring. dominates him there. And then eventually Cena hits a drop kick out of nowhere, covers him, but Rusev kicks out. Then Rusev hits his own drop kick. And I always forgot too, like this was before Rusev started wearing wrestling boots to the win, because eventually he ended up getting that foot injury, which was why he started wearing wrestling boots. So it was very weird to see Rusev wrestling without wrestling boots on. And but yeah, Rusev hits a drop kick of his own, and Cena kicked out of that. Then Rusev continues to dominate the matchup. Cena tries to hit his 5 moves of doom. He hits the shoulder block. He goes for a second one. Rusev catches him into a fall-away slam. And then eventually Rusev tries to hit a suplex on Cena. Cena reverses it into one of his own. And then he hits a wicked clothesline on Rusev, covers him. Rusev kicks out. And then Rusev hits a tilt-a-whirl slam, covers him. Cena kicks out. And Rusev continues to dominate the matchup. Eventually, Cena starts hitting his 5 moves of doom, hits the 5-knuckle shuffle, goes for the attitude adjustment. Rusev counters into a DDT. And then Rusev hits a, and then Rusev continues to dominate the matchup. Cena then fights back, hits a tornado DDT out of the corner, covers him. Rusev kicks out, and then Cena tries to go for the STF, but Rusev fights out of it. And then Rusev goes for another tilt-a-whirl slam. Cena counters into a crossface, and he's gonna make Rusev tap out. But Rusev powers out of the hold and hits an Alabama slam. But Cena kicked out of that. And then Rusev goes for the accolade. Well, then Rusev hits a kick to the head. Cena kicked out of that. Then he goes for the accolade. Cena counters into the STF. But then Rusev ended up getting to the ropes. And then Cena hits an AA on Rusev. Rusev kicks out of that. Then he goes for the leg drop off the top rope. Rusev catches him into a powerbomb. Puts Cena in the accolade. And he has this move on for a while. Cena keeps trying to power out. Eventually he's about to power out of it. He gets back to his feet, but then Lana distracts the referee. So behind the referee's back, Rusev hits a low blow and a super kick on Cena, and then he puts him back in the accolade, and Cena ends up passing out, so the referee stops the match because Cena passed out, which counts as a submission, and Rusev ends up retaining his United States Championship, and then afterwards, because he was pro-Russia at the time, the Russian flag comes out, and Rusev stands tall holding the United States Championship. And afterwards, Cena walks away all disappointed that he lost. And like I said, I thought this was a really good match. And then obviously the aftermath would lead where they would end up facing off again at WrestleMania 31. Cena would win the U.S. title from Rusev and have his first and cause Rusev to have his first loss. And then he beat him again in Extreme Rules, and then again at Payback. So pretty much Rusev was another victim of John Cena that, was one of the guys that John Cena buried. Because after this, Rusev pretty much is, hasn't been the same. He hasn't been as pushed as promised as much of a monster since this point, and pretty much Cena kind of killed all his momentum. So it's kind of where everybody went. And obviously, Cena is still John Cena. Okay, so next it cuts to the panel segment again, and pretty much they talk about the show so far, mainly the United States title match, and I thought it was fine. Okay, so then we had the main event. It was the WWE World Heavyweight Championship #1 Contenders match, where the winner faces Brock Lesnar for the title at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan. And watching this match, I really missed when Roman Reigns would come out through the crowd. I thought that made him just look like an absolute badass. The Shield used to do that, so I obviously missed when Roman Reigns used to come out through the crowd. And I really hate that the fans hated him so much that they took away that entrance. This is why I don't like some wrestling fans. And I liked the match, but I still think it was a bad idea to do this match because obviously, like I've been talking about, Roman Reigns comes off as the heel in this match because he's going up against the biggest babyface in the company at the time, so it really didn't make any sense in that regard. But the match starts off, they both start chain wrestling each other. Daniel Bryan's pretty much out wrestling Roman Reigns, which makes sense because Roman Reigns, he's the better Daniel Bryan's a better wrestler than Roman Reigns, and Daniel Bryan hits a drop toe hold, and he goes to put him, do the spot where he gets on the guy's knees and just stomps on him like he's going to put him in a surfboard, but Roman Reigns powers out of it, which I thought looked pretty cool, and then Roman Reigns dominates the matchup for a while. He hits a bunch of power moves. He hits a tilt-a-whirl slam on Daniel Bryan, covers on Bryan, kicks out. and Reigns hits a bunch of gets him in headlocks and hits a bunch of power moves on him. And then Daniel Bryan works over the injured leg of Roman Reigns, and he goes after it for a while, but then Roman Reigns is able to fight back, and Daniel Bryan holds him in the corner, and he kicks the rope into his face, and he goes to hit a drop kick in the corner, but Roman Reigns counters into a vicious clothesline that completely spins Daniel Bryan into a 360, covers him, Bryan kicks out, and then Roman Reigns hits like 3 suplexes, like amateur wrestling suplexes on Bryan, covers him, Bryan still kicks out, and then he throws him into the barricade a bunch of times, and then he goes to hit the Superman punch on him. Bryan counters into a kick to the ribs, covers him. Reigns kicks out, and then Bryan starts dominating the matchup. He hits a bunch of he works over the ribs of Roman Reigns, hits a bunch of kicks into the corner, and then he hits 3 drop kicks into the corner. Then he goes to hit a Hurricanrana off the turnbuckle, but Reigns counters into a power bomb, which I thought looked really cool, and covers him. Bryan kicks out, and then what else happens? Daniel Bryan eventually gets back in control, and he hits a yes kick to the back of the head of Reigns. Reigns kicks out. Then he gets Bryan into the. Then he gets Reigns into the yes lock, but Reigns is able to power out of it. Reigns is able to get to the ropes, and he rolls out of the ring. And then Daniel Bryan hits 2 suicide dives on the outside, and then he goes for a third one. Reigns catches him and hits a belly to belly on the floor, and they're both. And then Reigns goes to spear him. Bryan reverses. Bryan moves out of the way, and Reigns goes crashing into the steel steps. And they're both about to get counted out, but Bryan gets back in time, and then Reigns is about to get counted out, but he is able to make it back in time. And then Bryan goes to go off the top rope. Reigns catches him into a Superman punch, which the commentators didn't call, which I thought was terrible. Covers him. Bryan kicks out, and then Daniel Bryan hits a kick right to the back of the head of Reigns, and then he hits the running knee. Covers him. Reigns kicks out, which I thought was awesome, and then he hits a yes kick to the back of the head. Covers him again. Reigns kicks out again. Then he gets him into the yes lock for a long ass time, but Reigns is able to power out of it. And then eventually Bryan puts him into the triangle choke. But Reigns is able to hit a power bomb to power out of it, and they're both just laid out. And they eventually start brawling toe to toe with each other. And eventually Bryan hits the yes kick to the back of the head again. He goes for the drop kick, but Reigns ends up hitting he goes for the running knee again, and also before Bryan also hit a back suplex off the second turnbuckle in this match as well, which I thought was cool. But then the finish comes where Bryan goes for the running knee again, but then Reigns counters into a spear, covers him, gets the victory, and Roman Reigns ends up winning the matchup, and he would go on to face Brock Lesnar in the main event of WrestleMania, and Roman Reigns is celebrated, and afterwards Daniel Bryan gets in his face, and he's all pissed off, but he says, you better kick his ass at WrestleMania. Then he shakes his hand, Reigns shakes his hand, and then that was it. And I don't know if the noise was pumped in or not, but Roman Reigns did get a huge reaction, everyone popped when he actually did win this match. So this did kind of accomplish, and I thought, Roman Reigns really benefited from working with Daniel Bryan, and I thought this match was a great match. It probably was the match of the night on this show. And I thought it was, it was the best match. And it wasn't just because of Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan had his hand in it, but I thought Roman Reigns had some good moves in this match, like the power bomb, the clothesline, the tilt-a-whirl slam. Roman Reigns provided his part of the match. It does take 2 to tango. I'm not gonna crap on Roman Reigns and saying that he put out a bad match, because he didn't. I never thought Roman Reigns was a bad wrestler. Roman Reigns, I thought, always was a good, solid wrestler. After the Shield, anyways. So when he was in the Shield, not so much. But when he went out on his own, I thought he was a good, solid wrestler. Because he can wrestle. I hate when people say that he can't wrestle. Because he can. He can wrestle, I think, better than some of the other guys on the roster. And yes, you can hate me for that in the comments below. But it's just the truth. I hate it when people, like I said, I hate it when people say that Roman Reigns can wrestle, but he can wrestle. I hate it when people say that. And obviously, the aftermath came as Daniel Bryan would go on to be a part of that ladder match I mentioned earlier in this video at WrestleMania, and he would go on to win the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania in the ladder match. But then eventually he had to give up the title because he had to go away again for surgery, and he ended up retiring actually the next year just before Fastlane. And now he's the general manager of SmackDown. Roman Reigns will go on to face Brock Lesnar for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and we actually had a good solid match with Brock Lesnar. You had a really good main event with him, and this is when Seth Rollins would come out, cash in at WrestleMania, and win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, taking away Roman Reigns' moment, which I thought was awesome at the time. I'll talk about it more when I get there. And then Roman Reigns would continue. The whole story was him chasing after that WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and eventually he would, at the end of the year, win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So Roman Reigns, I thought, went pretty far in this match, and watching the matchup from the aftermath, I think both superstars benefited from it. So I thought that was great. So overall, I thought this show was average. I actually went back and watched my review from when the show actually happened, when I was actually, my thoughts on it at the time, and they really haven't changed all that much. I still think this was an average show. I think back then I thought it was a decent show, and I still kind of feel the same way. This isn't a bad show, but it's an average show. It's nothing special, nothing really you need to go back and watch. You really don't miss much. If you want some past wrestling to go back and watch, I actually really wouldn't recommend this show. I'm not saying that it's bad, but it's nothing you really need to see. The show isn't really like a bad show. If this was like a Monday Night Raw, this actually would be a good Monday Night Raw, but this was a pay-per-view. It wasn't just that. A lot of these matches you would probably see on Monday Night Raw, like the Intercontinental Championship match, the Divas Championship match, the 6-man tag team match, and what else would be like Raw matches? Even like the Sting and Triple H face to face, that was something you would see on Raw. The Bray Wyatt promo segment, that was something you would probably see on Raw. Maybe the Goldust and Stardust match wasn't all that particularly good. Obviously we know why, but the U.S. title match was really good. And the main event was great between Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan, but like I said, this just really wasn't all that good this really wasn't a great show. It was an average show. A lot of the stuff you'd see on Raw, and it was just kind of you feel like this is an average show when you watch it back. And the WWE Tag Team title match. Watching it back now, I think this is a really good WWE Tag Team title match. Actually, my perspective on that match has actually changed since I watched it back. Because at the time, like I said, I thought Cesaro was going to get buried. But the WWE Tag Team title match, I think, is really good. But that's probably a match, too, you'd probably see on Raw. Because, it had gotten to the point where we had seen that match a lot. So that was probably a match you'd end up seeing on Raw as well. So, like I said, a lot of matches you just see on Raw. The only pay-per-view matches are the two last matches with the U.S. title match and the main event. Those are probably the only pay-per-view quality matches. So overall, I have to say that this is still an average show. Watching it back, it's how I feel about it. So, yeah, Fastlane 2015. If you want to go back and watch it, it's a show I would recommend you skip because it's not really a show you really need to go back and watch. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm going to end off this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching me review Fastlane from 2015. It was definitely interesting to go back and rewatch it. And it's kind of interesting. I guess sometimes there are those shows that my opinions don't really change on them. And this, I guess, was one of those shows. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and my own The Talkinator and CM Brothers channel. And now, my CM Live Reactions channel, because I plan on making this live reactions video tomorrow. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and make sure you leave some comments about what you guys think about this show. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.